Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on Cerberus base. The space station floated at the edge of human space, far from Earth and the busy colonies. It was a quiet job most days. Jake and his team watched 4 signals from deep space and made sure nothing dangerous came toward human worlds. The coffee in Jake's cup had gone cold hours ago. He stared at the screens, showing empty space. Stars twinkled in the darkness, but nothing moved. Nothing talked. It was just another boring night shift. Lisa Parker worked at the communications station nearby. She wore headphones and listened to radio waves from distant stars. Most of the time, she heard nothing but static. Sometimes she picked up signals from human ships or bases. But tonight felt different. Ryan Clark sat at the tactical station. He was young, but smart. He could spot trouble before it became dangerous. His job was to watch for enemy ships or weapons. But in this quiet part of space, enemies were rare. Dr. Amy Foster worked in the science lab below the command deck. She studied alien life and languages. She had never met a real alien, but she had spent years learning how they might talk. Her computers were full of patterns and codes that might help humans understand alien speech. The night was almost over when everything changed. A sharp beep came from Lisa's station. She pulled off her headphones and looked at her screen. Her face went pale. "Captain," she said in a quiet voice, "I'm getting something strange." Jake turned to look at her. "What kind of strange?" "It's not from any human ship. The signal is coming from deep space, way beyond our territory." Jake stood up and walked to Lisa's station. Ryan also came over to look. The screen showed wave patterns that moved up and down like mountains. "Is it a message?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded. "I think so, but it's not meant for us. This looks like a private military channel. Someone is talking to someone else, and we just happened to hear it." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humans had never made contact with aliens before. They knew other life existed in the galaxy, but no one had ever talked to them. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. The language is completely different from anything we know. But I can tell they're upset. The voice sounds ... scared." Jake picked up his phone and called Dr. Foster. "Amy, I need you up here right now. We have something you need to hear." Dr. Foster arrived in the command center 5 minutes later. She was a small woman with gray hair and smart eyes. She had spent her whole life dreaming of this moment. "Play it again," she told Lisa. The alien voice came through the speakers. It sounded like music mixed with whispers. The tone was urgent and frightened, even without understanding the words. Everyone could tell something terrible was happening. Dr. Foster listened, with her eyes closed. She had trained her ears to pick up patterns in strange languages. After hearing the message 3 times, she opened her eyes. "This is definitely a distress call," she said. "I can hear panic in the voice, and there are coordinates mixed in with the speech. Numbers that might tell us where this is coming from." Jake felt cold. "What kind of distress?" Dr. Foster played the message again on her tablet. She had software that could break down the sounds into patterns. Slowly, words began to make sense. "They're talking about evacuation," she said. "And children. Something about protecting children." Her face grew worried. "Captain, I think someone is attacking these people." Ryan pulled up star maps on his computer. "If Dr. Foster is right about those coordinates, this signal came from a solar system about 50 light-years away. That's way outside human space." Jake stared at the map. 50 light-years was far, but not impossible to reach with human ships. The question was whether they should try. "Keep listening," Jake told Lisa. "Record everything." For the next hour, more messages came through. Dr. Foster worked to understand them. What she learned made everyone in the command center feel sick. The aliens calling for help were called the HFY. They were peaceful people who lived on several worlds. But another alien race called the Vorthok Dominion was attacking them. The Vorthok were not just conquering the Kethver worlds, they were killing everyone they found. The worst part came when Dr. Foster translated a message about children's shelters being bombed. The Kethver were trying to protect their young, but the Vorthok were hunting them down on purpose. "This is genocide," Dr. Foster said with anger in her voice. "They're trying to wipe out the entire Kethver race." Jake felt his hands make fists. He had served in the human military for 20 years. He had fought pirates and protected colonies, but he had never heard of anything this evil. The final message came just before dawn. A Kethver commander was trying to coordinate the defense of their main city. His voice was tired and desperate. He talked about families hiding in underground tunnels while bombs fell from the sky. Then, in the middle of his report, a new sound came through the speakers. It was deep and terrible, the sound of a city being destroyed from space. The commander's voice cut off suddenly. After that, there was only static. Jake stared at the silent speakers. Somewhere in the galaxy, an entire civilization was being murdered. The killers thought no one was watching. They thought no one cared. They were wrong. "Lisa, send everything we recorded to Earth Command. Mark it Priority 1. Ryan, start calculating jump routes to that system. I want options for fast travel. Dr. Foster, keep working on the translation. We need to understand everything," said Jake, sat back in his command chair. His quiet life was over. Humanity was about to learn that the galaxy was not a safe place. But maybe, just maybe, they could do something about it. The distress call had found the right people, after all. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the war room on Earth. The room was deep underground, protected by thick walls and heavy doors. On the big screen in front of her, she could see the faces of the most important people in human government and military. The recording from Cerberus Base had reached Earth 12 hours ago. Since then, no one had slept. The alien voices filled the room, speaking words that Dr. Foster had translated into English. Every word made the people in the room more angry and worried. President Kevin Walsh sat at the head of the table. He was a good man who had led humanity through peaceful times. But now he faced a choice that no human leader had ever faced before. Should humanity go to war to save aliens they had never met? General Marcus Stone was the first to speak. He was a big man with gray hair and scars from old battles. "Mr. President, we cannot ignore this. The Vorthok are committing genocide. If we do nothing, we become part of the crime." Secretary of State Helen Brooks shook her head. "General, we don't know anything about these aliens. What if this is just propaganda? What if the Kethver are the real enemies, and we're being tricked?" Dr. Foster had been brought to Earth on the fastest ship available. She looked tired, but determined. "Madam Secretary, I've analyzed every sound in those recordings. The fear in their voices is real. No one can fake that kind of terror. Admiral." Hayes pulled up a holographic star map. Red dots showed the Kethver worlds that had gone silent. In just 3 years, 12 planets had stopped sending any signals at all. "The pattern is clear," Admiral Hayes said. "The Vorthok are moving from world to world, wiping out everything. They're not taking prisoners. They're not stealing resources. They're just killing." Colonel Mike Sanders, head of human intelligence, added more bad news. "Our long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures in the Kethver systems. The kind of energy you see when planets are being bombed from orbit." President Walsh looked at the faces around the table. These were smart people who had kept humanity safe for decades. But this was bigger than anything they had faced. "What are our military options?" he asked Admiral Hayes. Admiral Hayes touched her tablet, and new images appeared on the screen. "We can assemble the largest fleet in human history. Every major warship, every carrier, every support vessel. But, Mr. President, this would not be a small operation. We're talking about moving our entire military to a war zone 50 light-years away." General Stone leaned forward. Admiral, how long would it take to get there? 2 weeks to assemble the fleet. 3 weeks to travel to Kethver's space. If any of them are still alive when we arrive. The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. 5 weeks might be too long. The Kethver could all be dead by then. Secretary Brooks spoke again. We need to think about the risks to humanity. What if we send our entire fleet away and someone attacks Earth? What if this is a trap to leave our worlds defenseless? Dr. Foster stood up. Her voice was calm but firm. I have something else to show you. She played a new recording that had come from Cerberus base just an hour ago. The sound that came from the speakers was different from the military messages. It was softer, sadder. Dr. Foster had worked all night to translate it. This is a Kethver parent singing to their child, she explained. The city around them is burning. They know they're going to die, but they're singing a lullaby to keep their child calm. The beautiful alien song filled the war room. Even though no one understood the original words, they could feel the love and sadness in the voice. The parent was trying to comfort their child in their final moments. The song stopped suddenly. There was a sound like thunder, then nothing. They're all gone, Dr. Foster said with tears in her eyes. That entire family, that entire city, gone forever. President Walsh stood up and walked to the window. Even though they were underground, the window showed a view of the surface. He could see the lights of the city above, where millions of humans lived in peace. How many Kethver are left? He asked. Colonel Sanders checked his reports. Based on the signals we're tracking, maybe 2 million. Spread across 3 worlds. 3 years ago, they had over 50 million people. The numbers hit everyone like a punch. In 3 years, the Vorthok had killed 48 million innocent beings, and they were not stopping. Admiral Hayes spoke quietly. Mr. President, there's something else. Our scientists have been studying the Vorthok weapons from the recordings. They're powerful, but not more advanced than our technology. We could fight them and win. General Stone nodded. Our ships are faster, our weapons are more accurate, our tactics are better. The Vorthok seem to rely on fear and overwhelming force. They're not used to fighting enemies who fight back effectively. President Walsh turned back to the room. What about our allies? The Mars colonies, the moon bases, the outer settlements? Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time that day. They're all in, sir. When word of the genocide spread, every human colony volunteered ships and crews. Mars is sending their entire defense fleet. The asteroid miners are offering their heavy equipment. Even the scientists on Europa want to help. Dr. Foster added, Sir, I've been working with the linguistics team. We think we can create a translation system that will let us talk to any surviving Kethver. We can coordinate with their resistance forces. Secretary Brooks looked worried. Mr. President, once we do this, we can never go back. Humanity will be a military power in the galaxy. Other alien races will know we exist. We'll have friends and enemies we've never imagined. President Walsh sat back down. He thought about his daughter, who was safe at college on Mars. He thought about all the human children growing up on peaceful worlds. Then he thought about the Kethver child who had listened to their parents' last lullaby. Admiral Hayes, how fast can you assemble the fleet? 72 hours, sir? Every available ship, every trained crew. General Stone, can you prepare our forces for extended combat operations? Yes, sir. Our people are ready to fight. Dr. Foster, can you have the translation system ready by the time we reach Kethver space? I'll have it ready, Mr. President. President Walsh looked around the room one more time. Then it's decided. We're going to war. Not to conquer, not to gain territory, but to stop genocide. Humanity will not stand by while innocent people are murdered. He pressed a button on the table. Across human space, alarms began to sound. Ships powered up their engines. Crews reported for duty. Weapons were loaded. The largest military force in human history was about to launch. Their mission was simple: save the Kethver and destroy the Vorthok Dominion in the quiet war room. Admiral Hayes began making the calls that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity was no longer hiding among the stars. They were coming to fight. The shipyards around Earth had never been so busy. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching hundreds of ships gather in formation. Each vessel represented the best of human technology and the courage of volunteers who had signed up to fight for strangers. The biggest ship in the fleet was the UHS Defiance. Captain Steve Parker commanded the massive dreadnought that stretched over 2 kilometers long. Its armor was thick enough to stop asteroid impacts. Its weapons could destroy small moons. But Captain Parker was more proud of his crew than his ship. "Admiral," Captain Parker's voice came through the communication system. "Defiance is ready for combat operations. All systems tested and weapons loaded." Admiral Hayes smiled. Steve Parker was one of humanity's best ship commanders. If anyone could lead the main battle line against the Vorthok, it was him. 6 heavy cruisers formed the core of the attack force. Captain Dan Rogers commanded the lead cruiser, SOS Vengeance. His ship was fast and deadly, designed to break through enemy lines and hit important targets. Captain Rogers had fought space pirates for 10 years. He knew how to win battles against bad odds. "Rogers here, Admiral. My squadron is locked and loaded. We're ready to show these Vorthok what human justice looks like." The cruisers were supported by 28 destroyers and 43 frigates. Each smaller ship had a crew that wanted to be there. Word of the Kethver genocide had spread through human space like wildfire. Military bases had more volunteers than ships to put them on. Captain Maria Santos commanded the most important part of the fleet. Her carrier, UHS Liberty, carried 300 fighter craft and their pilots. The fighters were fast and smart, able to attack large ships or protect friendly forces. Captain Santos had trained many of the pilots herself. "Liberty fighter wing ready for deployment, Admiral. My pilots are the best in human space. They'll make the Vorthok regret starting this war." But Admiral Hayes knew that ships and weapons were only part of what they needed. The real challenge was preparing to fight an enemy they knew almost nothing about. Chief Engineer Paul Mitchell worked around the clock in the Luna Station workshops. His teams were modifying human weapons based on the little information they had about Vorthok technology. "Admiral, we've analyzed the energy signatures from the recordings," Paul reported. "The Vorthok use shield systems, similar to ours, but their frequency is different. I've adjusted our weapons to penetrate their defenses more effectively." Paul's engineers had done more than just upgrade weapons. They had created new types of ammunition, improved ship armor, and designed special equipment for boarding enemy vessels. Human technology was about to get its first real test against alien engineering. Dr. Amy Foster had moved her entire research operation to Luna Station. She worked with teams of linguists and computer specialists to create the translation system that would let humans talk to the Kethver. "The breakthrough came yesterday," Dr. Foster explained to Admiral Hayes. "We found the mathematical patterns in their language. Numbers, coordinates, technical terms, they all follow logical rules. Once we understood that, the rest of the language opened up." Lieutenant Commander Susan Wright led the translation team. She was young but brilliant with languages. She had learned to speak Kethver in just 2 weeks. "Admiral, we can now understand about 70% of their communications. More importantly, we can speak to them. If there are survivors, we'll be able to coordinate our attacks with their resistance forces." Fleet Admiral Tony Martinez arrived from Mars with the colonial defense ships. His fleet was smaller than Earth's, but his crews were tough fighters who had defended the outer colonies from pirates and raiders. "Patricia," Tony said to Admiral Hayes, "my people are ready for this fight. Mars hasn't forgotten what it's like to be attacked by bullies. We're going to help the Kethver the same way Earth helped us. Admiral Kate Sullivan brought the construction ships from the Titan yards. Her vessels were not designed for combat, but they carried the tools and materials needed to repair battle damage and build temporary bases. We're not just bringing weapons, Admiral Sullivan explained. We're bringing everything needed to rebuild Kethver civilization when this war is over. Medical supplies, food processors, construction equipment. We're planning for victory and what comes after. The most difficult part of the preparation was strategic planning. General Marcus Stone had come to Luna Station with his best tactical officers. They studied every piece of information about the Vorthok, trying to understand how the enemy thought and fought. The Vorthok are bullies, General Stone told the assembled ship captains. They're used to fighting weak enemies who can't fight back. Their tactics are designed to create fear, not to win battles against equal opponents. Captain Parker asked the question everyone was thinking. General, what if we're wrong? What if they're stronger than we think? General Stone looked around the room at the faces of humanity's best military officers. Then we adapt. That's what humans do better than anyone else in the galaxy. We learn, we change, we overcome. The final element of preparation was intelligence gathering. Long-range scout ships had been sent toward Kethver space to collect information about enemy positions and strength. The reports that came back were both encouraging and terrifying. The Vorthok have about 300 ships in the target area, reported Commander Lisa Walker from the scout ship UHS Ghost. They're spread out across the remaining Kethver worlds. But Admiral, they're not expecting any opposition. Their formations are designed for bombardment, not fleet combat. Admiral Hayes studied the intelligence reports with her senior officers. The Vorthok had more ships, but they were not prepared for a real fight. Human tactics and training might be enough to overcome the numbers disadvantage. Dr. Foster brought the most important news. Admiral, we've made contact with Kethver resistance forces. They're still fighting on 3 worlds. They know we're coming, and they're ready to help. The message from the Kethver resistance was simple, but powerful. They thanked humanity for caring about strangers, and promised to fight alongside their new allies until the Vorthok were defeated or destroyed, as the final preparations were completed. Admiral Hayes gathered her fleet commanders for one last meeting. In 6 hours, we jump to hyperspace, she announced. 3 weeks from now, we'll arrive at the first Kethver world. What we do there will be remembered for 1,000 years. Captain Santos spoke for all of them. Admiral, we're ready. Every ship, every crew, every weapon. The Vorthok started this war by attacking innocent people. We're going to finish it. The meeting ended, and the commanders returned to their ships. Across the fleet, final checks were completed. Weapons were charged. Navigation computers were programmed. Messages were sent to families back home. Admiral Hayes stood alone on the observation deck, watching her fleet prepare for humanity's first interstellar war. 347 ships carrying the hopes of every human alive. They were going to fight for people they had never met, on worlds they had never seen, against an enemy that had never faced real opposition. The Vorthok Dominion had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. They were about to learn that some things in the galaxy were more powerful than fear. Humanity was coming. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven system. Haven was what the humans called the Kethver homeworld, the last major planet where the aliens were still fighting for their lives. Admiral Patricia Hayes stared at the main screen on her flagship. What she saw made her heart break and her anger burn at the same time. The space around Haven was filled with debris. Pieces of destroyed cities floated in orbit like a metal graveyard. The planet's surface was covered with scars where orbital weapons had burned the ground. In some places, the oceans were boiling from the heat of repeated bombardments. "My God," whispered Captain Steve Parker from the UHS Defiance. "How many people lived here?" Dr. Amy Foster checked her files. Based on the signals we intercepted, Haven had 12 million Kethver before the attacks began. Now, ... She paused, reading new data from the sensors. I'm detecting maybe 50,000 life signs, scattered across the continents, hiding underground. But the worst sight was the Vorthok fleet itself. Over 200 alien ships surrounded Haven, like vultures. They were massive, dark vessels with weapons pointed at the planet below. Some of them were actively firing at the surface, destroying what little remained of Kethver civilization. Admiral Hayes felt cold rage fill her chest. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. We are witnessing genocide in progress. All units engage immediately. Show no mercy. The human fleet spread out into attack formation. Captain Parker's dreadnought UHS Defiance led the main battle line straight toward the center of the Vorthok formation. The 6 heavy cruisers under Captain Dan Rogers split off to attack the flanks. Captain Maria Santos launched all 300 of her fighters from the carrier UHS Liberty. The Vorthok were caught completely by surprise. Their sensors had been focused on the planet below, hunting for Kethver survivors to kill. They had never imagined that anyone would come to help their victims. The first human weapons to fire were the long-range kinetic bombardment platforms. These were massive railguns that fired metal slugs at incredible speed. The slugs hit Vorthok ships, like thunderbolts, punching through their armor and exploding inside their hulls. Direct hit on enemy flagship, reported Lieutenant Commander Susan Wright from the communications station. Their command ship is breaking apart. But the Vorthok recovered quickly from their surprise. These were professional killers who had conquered dozens of star systems. Their ships turned to face the human fleet and began returning fire. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up the space around Haven like a deadly fireworks show. Vorthok energy beams struck human shields, creating brilliant flashes of light. Human missiles streaked across the darkness, leaving trails of fire as they sought their targets. Captain Rogers and his cruiser squadron performed the first breakthrough. The UHS Vengeance led 5 other cruisers in a high-speed attack run that split the Vorthok formation in half. Rogers' ships were smaller than the enemy vessels, but they were much faster and more maneuverable. Vengeance to all units. Captain, Rogers called over the radio. These Vorthok ships are slow and clumsy. Their weapons are powerful, but they can't hit fast-moving targets. Use your speed. The human tactics began to show their effectiveness. The Vorthok had designed their ships to terrorize planets and overwhelm weak opponents. They were not prepared to fight an enemy that could match their firepower and outmaneuver their formations. Captain, Santos fighters swarmed around the larger enemy ships like angry bees. The small, fast human craft dodged between Vorthok weapons and struck at weak points in their armor. Fighter pilot Lieutenant Jack Cooper scored the first fighter kill when his missiles destroyed a Vorthok destroyer's engine section. This is Lightning Squadron, Lieutenant Cooper reported. Enemy point defenses are weak. They're not used to defending against small craft. We're cutting them apart. The battle raged for 6 hours. Both sides lost ships, but the humans were winning. The Vorthok had expected an easy day of killing defenseless Kethver. Instead, they faced the most advanced military force they had ever encountered. The turning point came when Lieutenant Commander Wright made contact with the Kethver resistance. "Admiral, I'm receiving signals from the planet's surface," she reported, excitedly. "There are Kethver resistance fighters still active down there. They want to help us." The voice that came through the speakers was weak but determined. Dr. Foster translated as, "The alien spoke. This is Commander Veltar of the Haven Resistance. We have been fighting alone for so long. Are you really here to help us?" Admiral Hayes personally answered the call. "Commander Veltar, this is Admiral Hayes of the human fleet. We received your people's distress calls. We came as fast as we could. We're here to save whoever we can and destroy the Vorthok. The Kethper commander was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with emotion that needed no translation. Admiral Hayes, my people have prayed for help every day. For 3 years. We thought the universe had abandoned us. Thank you for proving us wrong. The Kethva resistance provided crucial intelligence about Vorthok positions and tactics. They had been fighting and hiding from the enemy for 3 years. They knew every weakness in the Vorthok strategy. The big ships with the triple weapon, Array's Commander Veltar explained, those are their planet killers. They're heavily armored but slow to turn. If you can get behind them, their rear sections are vulnerable. Captain Parker immediately adjusted his attack. The UHS Defiance and 2 other human capital ships focused their fire on the Vorthok planet killers. These were the ships that had been destroying Kethver cities for years. Now they faced the full fury of human military technology. The largest Vorthok ship, their regional command vessel, tried to escape when it became clear the battle was lost. Captain Rogers would not let it go. All cruisers, form up on me, he ordered. That ship has been murdering innocent people for 3 years. It doesn't get to run away. The human cruisers chased the fleeing Vorthok command ship across the system. When they caught it near Haven's outer moon, the battle was brief and one-sided. The Vorthok had built their ships for intimidation, not for fighting determined opponents. As the last Vorthok ship exploded or surrendered, Admiral Hayes looked at the tactical display. Somehow, impossibly, they had won. The human fleet had defeated a larger enemy force and saved what remained of the Kethvar homeworld, but the cost was visible everywhere. Space around Haven was filled with wreckage from both sides. Several human ships had been damaged or destroyed. Good people had died to save strangers they had never met. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes, begin search and rescue operations immediately. Our priority is finding and helping Kethver survivors. Captain Santos sent her fighters to patrol the system, while repair crews worked on damaged ships. Captain Sullivan's construction vessels began setting up temporary bases where refugees could be housed and fed. Dr. Foster worked with the communications team to establish full contact with the resistance. The Kethver who emerged from their hiding places were thin and scared, but alive. Children who had been born during the war saw sunlight for the first time in years. Admiral, Dr. Foster reported with tears in her eyes, Commander Veltar says, his people want to fight alongside us. They want to help us free the other Kethver worlds. Admiral Hayes looked at the planet Haven, scarred, but not broken. The Kethver had survived 3 years of attempted genocide. Now they wanted to help rescue their people on other worlds. Tell Commander Veltar that we would be honored to have his people as allies. This war isn't over yet. The Battle of Haven was humanity's first victory in space combat against aliens. But more importantly, it was the moment when 2 species became friends. The humans had come to save strangers. The Kethver had welcomed their rescuers as family. Together, they would bring justice to the galaxy. The victory at Haven was only the beginning. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in her war room, studying a massive map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Wartha-controlled systems. Blue dots showed human positions. Yellow dots represented worlds where other alien species suffered under Vorthok rule. There were too many yellow dots. Intelligence reports confirm what we suspected, said Colonel Mike Sanders. The Vorthok Dominion controls over 60 star systems. They have enslaved or destroyed dozens of alien civilizations. What we saw at Haven is happening everywhere. Captain Steve Parker joined the meeting via video link from the UHS Defiance. His ship was being repaired after the battle, but his crew was ready for more fighting. Admiral, my people want to finish this. Every human who fought at Haven knows we can't stop now. Admiral Hayes nodded. The captured Vorthok files had revealed the true scope of their empire. For 1,000 years, they had spread across the galaxy like a disease, destroying everything beautiful and enslaving everything useful. "We're splitting the fleet into 3 task forces," Admiral Hayes announced. "Each force will have a specific mission. Fleet Admiral Tony Martinez from Mars would lead Task Force Alpha to liberate the remaining HFY colony worlds. Intelligence showed that 4 colonies still had survivors, but they were under constant attack. Tony, your job is speed, Admiral," Hayes explained. "Hit fast, save who you can, and establish safe zones for refugees. The HFY resistance fighters will guide you to the remaining strongholds." Admiral Kate Sullivan would command Task Force Beta. Her mission was to strike at Vorthok military installations and supply bases. The enemy had built their empire on the assumption that no one could challenge them. It was time to prove them wrong. Kate, destroy their ability to make war. Hit their shipyards, weapon factories, and command centers. Make them regret every innocent life they've taken. Admiral Hayes would personally lead Task Force Gamma in the most dangerous mission of all, a direct assault on the Vorthok capital system. The enemy's supreme overlord commanded the Dominion from a fortress world called Fourth Prime. If they could cut off the head of the snake, the rest would collapse. "I want volunteers only for Gamma," Admiral Hayes told her officers. "This will be the hardest fighting of the war. No one should feel forced to come." Every single captain volunteered immediately. The 3 task forces departed from Haven within a week. The HFY resistance provided ships, pilots, and intelligence. Commander Veltar personally joined Admiral Hayes' flagship as a liaison and tactical advisor. Admiral Hayes, Commander Veltar, said through the translation system, "My people have a saying. The stars shine brightest when darkness seems complete. Humanity has become our brightest star." Task Force Alpha struck first. Admiral Martinez led his ships to the HFY colony of New Kepler, where 50,000 aliens were trapped in underground cities. The Vorthok had been trying to dig them out and kill them for 6 months. The human attack was swift and brutal. Captain Dan Rogers, who had been transferred to Admiral Martinez's force, led a precision strike that destroyed every Vorthok ship in orbit before they could call for help. "This is Rogers' 2 ground forces," he announced over open channels. "The sky belongs to humanity now. Come out and see the sun." When the HFY emerged from their tunnels, they found human marines distributing food and medical supplies. Children who had never seen the sky pointed at the human ships and asked if they were angels. Task Force Beta hit the Vorthok military complex at Sunder Station 3 days later. Admiral Sullivan's ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation and began dismantling the enemy base with methodical precision. The Vorthok had built Sunder Station to be impossible to attack. It was defended by orbital platforms, minefields, and over 100 warships. But they had never faced human engineering and determination. Captain Maria Santos led a fighter assault that cleared the minefields in 2 hours. Her pilots had painted shark teeth on their ships and the words "Remember Haven" on their wings. They flew through enemy fire like they were born for it. "Santos to all fighters," she called over the radio. "These are the weapons they used to murder children. Turn them into scrap metal." The space battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, Sunder Station was a debris field, and Admiral Sullivan's construction crews were already building a humanitarian aid center in its place. But the real change began when other alien species started fighting back. The Zephyrians had been enslaved by the Vorthok for 200 years. They were forced to mine rare metals on airless moons, while their homeworld was stripped of resources. When they heard that humans were fighting the Dominion, they began sabotaging Vorthok mining equipment. The Crystalline Collective had seen half their planets turned into glass by Vorthok planet Lars. The survivors had hidden in asteroid fields for decades. When human ships appeared in their space-offering alliance, the Crystallines emerged with weapons they had been building in secret. The Vorthok, who had ruled through fear and overwhelming force, found themselves fighting on 100 fronts at once. Their client species rebelled. Their slave worlds declared independence. Their military commanders began questioning orders. Admiral Hayes received reports of the spreading rebellion as Task Force Gamma approached Vorth Prime. The enemy capital was the most heavily defended system in their empire, but the defenders were nervous and demoralized. Admiral, Commander Veltar pointed out, the Vorthok have never faced real opposition before. They don't know how to fight a war where the enemy fights back effectively. Their entire military doctrine is based on intimidation. The final battle began when Task Force Gamma dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vorth Prime system. The human fleet faced over 300 enemy ships protecting the Vorthok homeworld, but Admiral Hayes had a secret weapon. The other alien species had provided intelligence about Vorthok technology and tactics. The Crystallans had shared their advanced shield technology. The Zephyrians had given the humans detailed maps of Vorthok command structures. Most importantly, every species that had suffered under Vorthok rule had sent ships to join the final battle. "This is Admiral Hayes to all Allied forces," she announced as the mixed fleet took formation. "Today we end 1,000 years of tyranny. Today we prove that bullies can be stopped when good people work together." The battle for Vorth Prime lasted 3 days. The Vorthok fought with desperation, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Human tactics combined with alien technology and shared determination proved unstoppable. Captain Parker's UHS Defiance led the final assault on the Vorthok Palace complex. The Supreme Overlord tried to surrender when his last bodyguard ships were destroyed, but his own officers arrested him first. Even the Vorthok had grown tired of endless war and genocide. When the guns finally stopped firing, the galaxy was quiet for the first time in 1,000 years. The cleanup took months. Refugee camps became new cities. Former slave worlds started rebuilding. The human fleet helped establish a galactic council where all species could solve problems through talking instead of fighting. Admiral Hayes stood on the observation deck of her flagship, watching construction ships from a dozen species, working together to build the first interstellar hospital. Human doctors worked beside Kethfer healers and crystalline engineers. Commander Veltar joined her at the window. "Admiral, my people have been discussing what to call the humans in our histories. We have decided on a phrase that means those who heard our cry and came with thunder." Admiral Hayes smiled. "I prefer friends." The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Species that had never imagined freedom were building new civilizations. Children were growing up on worlds where war was just a story their parents told. The Vorthok had ruled through fear. Humanity had won through hope, and across the galaxy, when new species looked at the stars and wondered if anyone would help them. In their darkest hour, they knew the answer. Humanity would hear their call, and they would come with an armada.